Oh my god, it's attacking the city! What is it, boss? It's a big fucking monster! What kind of monster, boss? A fucking gorilla!
Hello, I'm Christian.
And I'm Jeremy.
And we are continuing our reviews on the King Kong franchise with Kong Skull Island. Now, Skull Island is a reboot of the King Kong franchise and is also set within the same universe as 2014's reboot of Godzilla. And this movie's set in the 70s, so technically this is a prequel to the 2014 Godzilla film. Now, since this is within the same continuity as Godzilla 2014, real quick, why don't you give your thoughts on that one?
Well, the 2014 Godzilla I consider to be kind of a mixed bag. You know, I mean, I was very excited to see it, but I was disappointed not to see a little more Godzilla in a movie called Godzilla. And, spoiler alert, I was really pissed off that they killed the character played by my favorite actor in the movie, Bryan Cranston, so soon in the movie, I might add. But, you know, when we do see Godzilla, he is awesome, and he does deliver. But, yeah, there's too much boring human drama in the movie. And while I get that we do need some good human drama, you know, they just went way overboard this time. And when the main character becomes too minor a character in his own movie, that's a problem, in my opinion.
The fact that Godzilla wasn't in it that much didn't bother me because there's so many other Godzilla films where it's that same formula. Even the original Godzilla, Godzilla doesn't really show up till... He shows up like maybe 20 minutes into the film, I would say, but like, still, even in the original film's more so about the human characters, but I think the difference is with the original film, you actually gave a shit about the human story, whereas in Godzilla 2014, the human story wasn't interesting.
Yeah, plus, I mean, I'm not sure about the exact runtime, but I'm pretty sure the original Godzilla was a lot shorter than this one, so it felt like he was in the movie more.
Yeah, but I think also, the thing that disappointed me about 2014's Godzilla, now personally I do like the film, but the thing that disappointed me though was the trailers made it out to be like it was going to be this really dark and grim movie, kind of like the original film, and I was excited. I thought, okay, this was going to be a return to the dark tone of the original film, and it really isn't that dark. I think it tried to be like the original Godzilla, but failed miserably, whereas this movie, on the other hand, we're going to talk about it in a second, I think tried to be like some of the more cheesy kaiju films, but actually succeeded. But we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, to quickly wrap up our thoughts on Godzilla 2014, I still like the film, but it's not the film that I think was promised to me through the trailers.
Yeah, I mean, I like parts of the movie too, you know. And
didn't you meet Bryan Cranston?
Yeah, I did at his Broadway show a few times. I actually sent a 8x10 photo of the poster for Godzilla to him through the mail, and he signed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was very nice. And actually, funny story, when I first met him, it was around the time Godzilla released, and I told him, you know, I loved him in Godzilla, and he's like, oh yeah, that was, you know, I liked how they, you know, developed the human characters, something like that. And then I remember I said, oh, but I hated how they killed you off, and he just goes, shh. You know, because there were other people getting his autograph.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't like that I was spoiling it.
Well, enough about Godzilla 2014. Now on to the second film of Legendary's MonsterVerse, Kong Skull Island, which I do think is the better film, honestly. And as I pointed out before, I think the issue with Godzilla 2014 is it tried to be like the original Godzilla, which is a very dark and serious film, but it failed at that. This, while it has some serious stuff in it, is much more of a tribute to more of like the cheesy kind of kaiju films that you would see in the late 60s and early 70s. And this succeeded at being a great tribute to those films, but also with a little bit, taking itself slightly more seriously and also with better special effects.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, you get some awesome monster battles in this movie.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, the characters are pretty entertaining too.
That's also another thing I think this has above Godzilla 2014. In Godzilla 2014, the only interesting character was Joe Brody, Bryan Cranston's character, and he dies like, a half hour into the film.
Big mistake.
Here, you have, admittedly, they're not the most well-developed characters, and they're not the most, like, three-dimensional characters, but the actors have enough charisma where they make the characters seem deeper than they might actually be, and they make the characters just likable. The characters are really likable in this movie.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I enjoy the entire cast. Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, John Goodman, Samuel L. Jackson. They're all great. I love the very first line in the movie, which is opening on the big political chaos of the 70s, and John Goodman's character, Bill Randa, says, "Mark my words, there'll never be another more screwed up time in Washington."
That was funny.
Yes, that is a very ironic line.
Now, the movie was directed by Jordan Vogt Roberts, who previously directed the coming-of-age drama, The Kings of Summer. The movie is also co-written by John Gatins, who previously wrote films like Dreamer, Coach Carter, and Flight. He was also an actor back in the 90s. He was in films like Pumpkinhead 2, Blood Wings, and Leprechaun 3. Now, the plot of Skull Island is it's set in the early 1970s at the tail end of the Vietnam War. The film follows a scientific expedition aided by the military to a mysterious and previously undiscovered island, which is dubbed Skull Island. When they get to the island, they discover that the island is home to prehistoric creatures, monsters, and a giant gorilla dubbed Kong. Kong kills many of the soldiers after he feels threatened, so now the main military commander vows revenge against the gorilla. The main problem is, if Kong is killed, there would be no stopping these other monsters, which are called the Skull Crawlers. I do want to point out, I love the opening credits sequence where it's showing you, like, how much society changed between, like, World War II and then the Vietnam War, and also showing you, like, a lot of the political climate of the late 60s and early 70s, which there does seem to be some social commentary in this film, would tie better in with like a Godzilla movie, because Godzilla has always been more about social commentary than King Kong was, but there's definitely some commentary on not just the Vietnam War, but also on what war does to people, but it's not like in your face about it either. Now, the film stars Tom Hiddleston as James Comrade, a former British Special Air Service captain. He ends up being one of the main human protagonists of the film. The movie also stars my future wife, I mean Brie Larson, as Mason Weaver, a photojournalist who is hired as the photographer for the expedition. In the movie, John Goodman plays Bill Randa, who works for the government organization Monarch, who know about the existence of giant monsters. Samuel L. Jackson plays Preston Packard, who is the main military commander and is sort of the main villain of the film, or at least the main human villain of the film. John C. Reilly plays Hank Marlowe, an Air Force lieutenant who has been stranded on the island since World War II. Terry Notary, I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right, but he does the motion capture for King Kong. The movie also stars Thomas Mann, Shea Whigham, Jason Mitchell, John Ortiz, Toby Kebbell, Corey Hawkins, and Tian. I'm not really sure how to say this actress's name, I'm sorry.
I think that whole, it shows you what war does to people, that could be maybe best exemplified by Samuel L. Jackson's character. I mean, he's very hardened. He's very pissed off that the U.S. gave up in Vietnam, and you could say it's definitely damaged him.
Yes, and he is a villain in the film, but he's a sympathetic villain.
Yeah, he's proud of his country, and he's pissed off that, they gave up so easily.
Yeah. And he definitely has sort of an Ahab vibe to it. I think Samuel Jackson even said he wanted to play it like Captain Ahab.
Yeah, after Kong destroys, a lot of his friends, he is dead set on revenge. Even when they try to convince him later, no, Kong's actually good, he's preventing the skull crawlers from killing everyone, he just does not give a shit. He wants that ape dead.
Yeah. And then, I loved John C. Reilly in the film.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I thought he kind of stole this movie in a lot of ways. Because he was funny, but he was funny because he was also kind of crazy, which makes sense because he's been there since World War II.
He's definitely out there, but he's very entertaining.
Entertaining, but very sympathetic, too, and I thought he had a great arc in the movie.
And I really enjoyed John Goodman as the seedy agent, Bill Randa, who, I mean, he's not technically a bad guy, but he does kind of mislead everyone about why they're going there. Which...
Would you say he could almost work as sort of the Carl Denham stand-in?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that. You know, I got John Goodman's autograph a bunch of times when he was at a Broadway show called The Front Page, and some of the stuff I got signed was, you know, photos of him in Kong Skull Island, and, I mean, he's a great actor and everything. He's one of those great character actors who you immediately recognize. You know, he's got a very distinctive voice, and, you know, he's great.
The movie's definitely a tribute, not just to, like, other King Kong movies and even other Godzilla movies, but it's also a tribute to Vietnam movies. Like, you definitely see a lot of influence of, like, Apocalypse Now and even Full Metal Jacket you see a little bit of in this movie. And I love that. Like, it combines the kaiju genre with the Vietnam War movie genre really well, actually. Even though it's not actually set in Vietnam, it's set during that war, and it actually works for the movie. It gives the movie a very unique atmosphere. Now I want to take a quick break from our review of this movie and cut to 2 short reviews on this film that 2 friends of ours did. The first short review was done by our friend Chris, and the other short review was done by our friend John.
So moving on to Skull Island, this one, I think they kind of sort of take a different approach with it, and it's more just like a straight up fun monster movie, as the previous ones that I've talked about were, but at the same time this is kind of that, a little bit more streamlined. Like there's themes, you still have that kind of theme of nature versus civilization, but here it's really just more about these characters and trying to get off the island and survival. You know, Hiddleston, I think, plays a really cool character who, he's not as developed as you'd like him to be, but he's a dude who, like, knows how to live and knows how to survive, and he's a good foil to Brie Larson's character, who's more of like a pacifist and more cares about animals. But the real star of the show, for sure, is John C. Reilly, because he plays such a cool, funny character that I loved a lot watching this movie, and I liked the partnership, the off-screen partnership that he had with the Japanese soldier. It's great that you don't really see too much of them together, but that relationship they had almost permeates like the rest of the movie after John comes back into the fray. You know, that moment where they're all like surrounded by the skull crawlers, and John's got the katana, and he's like, death before dishonor. You know, that's a really great moment, and it's so indicative of the journey he went on with that other character and how it still affects him even today, still trapped on the island. And the fact that there's such great characterization in a movie that is really just supposed to be a straightforward monster flick, it's a good thing to see that, you know, as much as it's not like a deep or complex movie. Because at the end of the day, you know, you have to care when people die in these kinds of movies. You know, you have to give a shit about them, and you really do. You like these people a lot. Even Sam is the villain. He did a really good job. Even John Goodman, his death scene is really shocking. You don't expect him to get taken out at that point, and it comes completely out of nowhere. Really well done. I love Toby Kebbell's character. He's another one that's like an unfortunate death, and you know it really hurts when he dies, because he's talking about like his son and stuff, and then just out of nowhere, Skullcrawler just like eats him. You know, it's just totally out of the blue. So yeah, this is a different beast from the King Kong films we have been used to. This is a rumination on what Skull Island is and what makes it stand apart from the world. Obviously, the fact that it's sort of an old school style Land Before Time type place that, you know, nobody should really be visiting or, you know, be curious about. But thankfully, the characters make it worthwhile. There's enough substance there that keeps you interested. And it is indicative of a very good direction that the MonsterVerse is headed in. So I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to the next Godzilla, especially with Mike Dougherty directing. Godzilla vs. Kong sounds amazing. So, you know, as long as they keep making stuff like this, I think I think it's all gonna work out well. Because I really enjoyed Skull Island. Really looking forward to King of the Monsters. And yeah, I think that crossover is gonna be incredible, and I think it's gonna be a great tribute and love letter to what these monster movies are to us as fans, much like what Pete Jackson's King Kong was. And I think that's really going to be a great thing to look forward to and to be a part of. So long live the MonsterVerse. Yeah, I hope it keeps going.
I actually like this one a lot more than Peter Jackson's version. What I liked about it was, it may be similar to the other film, but I liked about it was they made it a little bit different, and I like Tom Hiddleston a lot and Brie Larson's characters, and what's funny about seeing Tom Hiddleston play the hero in this film, I'm like thinking, wait a minute, do I root for him or Sam Jackson? Because, you know, he plays Nick Fury and he plays Loki, and it was pretty interesting to see like the roles reversed where he's playing the good guy and Sam Jackson is the bad guy. Also, the post-credits, they were awesome. I was so excited. I'm like, yes, King Kong Godzilla, this is going to be great.
Now, of course, we're doing these reviews for Horror Month, and of course it's debatable whether King Kong is horror or not. As we mentioned in our review of the original film, I think the original King Kong, while it's more of an adventure film, has horror elements, and the ending does become a horror film. But this movie, I would say, actually does have surprisingly quite a few horror elements, in my opinion. Like, when they realize how bad the situation is on Skull Island, like, some of those really do play out like scenes from a horror film, especially some of the music they use. And the movie does a really good job at showing you how people would probably actually react to something like a gorilla that big. Something that shouldn't exist, but does.
Oh yeah. There's also that really huge spider scene. That scene is disgusting, you know.
Yeah, and that's,
one of its legs goes right through a guy's, you know,
and that's
body.
Actually a Cannibal Holocaust reference,
yeah,
which I love how this is a mainstream PG-13 movie that's referencing Cannibal Holocaust, one of the most fucked up movies ever made.
Yeah, I'm surprised they were able to get away with that with a PG-13 rating.
Yeah. But the spider sequence is freaking cool, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, this is such a fun freaking movie.
Yeah.
This was actually my favorite film of 2017.
Yeah.
I saw the movie about 3 times in the theater, and I almost saw it a 4th time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it in the theaters too.
But I do love how the ending sets up the next Godzilla film. It establishes Godzilla, it establishes Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Rodan, which is freaking awesome. And I will say, you also get hints of Godzilla throughout the whole film, like John Goodman's character, he's the survivor of a ship that was destroyed. I very much got the implication that it was Godzilla who destroyed his ship.
Yeah, plus John Goodman's character saying, you know, about that nuclear testing in the Pacific, you know, he says they were trying to kill something. That's what they said about Godzilla in the Godzilla 2014 movie.
Yeah. So it ties in very well and could almost even count as a pseudo-Godzilla film in a way, but obviously it's more King Kong than Godzilla. But this is definitely setting up the remake of King Kong vs. Godzilla, which I'm very excited for.
Oh yes, that should be awesome. Yeah, so apparently the director, I thought this would be interesting to mention, the director of Kong Skull Island, Jordan Vogt-Roberts, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Yeah, he got really mad at CinemaSins for their video, you know, like everything wrong with Kong Skull Island. You know, he basically said, you know, you're not actual film criticism, you're just pointing out things that are, you know, very minor flaws, you know, nitpicking, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that I wasn't too familiar with that. I think I heard that somewhere, but I don't watch CinemaSins. I think, you know, they're so goddamn... Like, you could say, okay, maybe that's him not being able to take criticism, but at the same time, there's so... The few CinemaSins videos I have seen, they're so ridiculously nitpicky about stuff where it's like, I can see why he got angry.
I mean, I think I've heard a lot of people say that they're supposed to be satire, like you're not supposed to necessarily take all of it seriously, but I mean, I guess that's open to interpretation.
Now I want to cut to 2 more short reviews on this film. The first short review was done by my friend Christian Feliciano, and I'll leave a link to his YouTube channel in the description below. And the other short review was done by pretentious film critic Pierre Chesterfield.
Kong Skull Island, not to be confused with Kong Bone Island, is the latest reboot of the King Kong series. Now my biggest problem with the title, if I can get this out of the way first, is the fact that the one movie which does not shy away from letting you know that this giant monkey is the king of his land, is the one that decided to take away the king before his name. I mean, I guess it's not that big of a deal, but still. Now, Kong, Secret Society Island, takes place in the 70s, where we meet Tom Hiddleston, played by Tom Hiddleston, and Brie Larson, played by Brie Larson, and Samuel Oz. You get the point. In this movie, everyone is pretty much playing themselves. There are no great performances, except for John Goodman, who is one of the greatest actors alive. I don't know if I'm just saying that because I'm biased, but I guess it doesn't really matter because this movie isn't about performances. This movie is about Kong, damn it, where we didn't get to see much of Godzilla in a movie called Godzilla, for Christ's sake. In this one, we get a lot of Kong, and he is even more badass than he's ever been. In this one, he fights and fights and fights. And every single fight is packed with power, man. And it is this film that makes me more excited for the MonsterVerse than anything else. If Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is made similar to this, then you can take all the monies in the world for all I care. Because you would have done what other filmmakers have tried, but only few have succeeded in doing. Which is bringing my childhood dream to life. I should probably go into the script, but like I said about the performances, it's there, but it's nothing special. I mean, yes, the story about Kong being the last of his kind and the defender of the tribal people against demon creatures from below the earth is pretty cool. But you really have to thank the cinematography and CG and sound editing for making those battle scenes great. Overall, a very, very, very fun movie. If you want to see a monster movie with a lot of action, go ahead and see this film. You will not be disappointed.
Oh, hey guys, hey everybody, I'm here. Oh shit. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I stopped by my friend's party and there was a lot of crazy stuff, you know. A lot of people were there, very crowded, and the floor collapsed and there was a lot of deaths and injuries, but I'm okay now, so it's okay. I'm here, so that's what counts. We're talking about Dong Skull Island. For those of you who don't know,
it's Kong Skull Island, sir.
Kong Skull Island. Oh, Kong Skull Island, right. I thought it, you know, dongs and shit. I thought they were talking about that. Alright, so Kong Skull Island is 2017, sequel to the 2005 King Kong movie directed by Peter Jackson.
No, it's not.
No, it's not what?
It's not a sequel to the Peter Jackson movie.
Is it? It's not a sequel. Now, it's not a sequel.
No, it's not a sequel.
Oh, all right. Well, anyway, so it's it takes place in the 70s, and you could definitely tell that because of the cinema. Everybody's very hot and sweaty, so that's why it takes place in the 70s is very hot.
I think it means the 70s as in the decade, not the temperature.
The decade. What year? Do you know what year exactly? It takes place in
1973.
1973. That's right. Now, it stars Samuel L. Jackson, Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston, and all these fantastic casts of characters. A great story, great cinematography. Everything is great. You know, it takes place in Vietnam times. First, let me start off. I gotta tell you, the cinematography, as I just said before, it's fantastic. I'm a huge cinematography buff. Fantastic. Just very beautiful lights. Yes, it's great. There's a lot of different themes of. I really thought the social science themes behind Harambe. The message about Harambe was a great time. very ape-filled adventures. And I'm not just talking...
What the hell are you talking about, Harambe?
Well, you see, before this movie came out, Harambe was a gorilla that was wrongfully murdered in, because he killed a child. Well, that's what. Well, because the reason why I bring this up is because in the YouTube, I saw when I first saw this trailer before it came out. I saw a comment on the YouTube. I don't remember the YouTuber or anything like that, but it said Harambe Skull Island. So I put two and two together, and I figured maybe there's a theme, the thematic elements of Harambe. How he deserved better.
I don't think this movie was making a statement about Harambe.
All right. Well, that kind of. I guess you could say that. Now, let me tell you, the cast in this movie is fantastic. Very quality cast. This whole movie's a monster mash, meaning that there's a massacre, there's a fight. King Kong really gets down and dirty. He's a real character in this movie. I thought Sam Jackson was great. There's a real Moby Dick element. With him trying to get back at the gorilla Kong. Have you ever seen the director for this movie's beard? I gotta tell you, it's mag.
So, this concludes our King Kong reviews. Now, the next movie I'll be reviewing for Horror Month is a completely different kind of movie than any of the King Kong films. My next movie review will be on the 1985 Italian horror film, Demons. You haven't seen that movie, have you?
I've never seen it.
Alright, so I'm probably going to be doing that review by myself, but yeah, that will be my next review, and bye.